Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ben with One Take Thoughts, and today I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about a particular man that you may know of by the name of Andrew Tate III. A little bit of backstory for those who do not know, if you've been living under a rock, who this Top G man is. Top G, Andrew Tate, also known as Top G, is a American-British social media personality, businessman, and former professional kickboxer. He is well known throughout the sports world as well as throughout the TV world, as he was in Big Brother. And this man has now become the subject of most of the attention by a lot of the media outlets, especially in the last year. He maybe hasn't, once he was released out of prison, his influence was once again fired up, and now he's just kind of still hanging around. I still believe he's on probation. He was released, and him and his brother, Tristan Tate is his brother. So this man particularly is just very controversial. The allegations against him are severe. They're very severe. But I think that partly the reason of his popularity is because of the severity of just his character. Maybe not particularly the allegations, but who he is and how he acts. He's very... what he says is very controversial. People get a rise out of talking about him. And so for me personally, I just want to kind of speak on him a little bit. I've spoken on him a little bit in the channel in the past, but I just kind of want to have a formal conversation about him because I do have my opinions. And I would like to just kind of talk to you about some of his views. And so I guess I'll just kind of do it as a 5-point topic. And I will start off with his views on women. So, Andrew Tate's views on women are, first of all, I want to say this, not completely wrong. Andrew Tate, in fact, I think for a large part of it, they're not extreme by any means. They're traditional, but they're not extreme. I think that's one of the things people mistake about Andrew Tate is that they mistake him, not everything about him, but there's things that are for sure pretty out there, but people mistake him for being this extremist when in reality he's just a traditionalist in a lot of ways. And women is one of those things where he believes that a man should go out and work for his family, take care of his family, provide for the wife, and take care of her. And by doing this, that would fulfill one of the roles as a man. And the woman is supposed to take care of the children at home, cook, clean, be a housemaker. And this is now the point of a lot of, and it really has been for the last 100 years, a point of a lot of controversy. Now, what would the verse be? Because I always like to look at things through a biblical lens. What verses speak on women? I know there's a verse out there. I'm looking it up right now so I can be completely sure. Women... Because I kind of want to look at this as a biblical standpoint. One of the verses is women will be saved in childbirth. I believe that's the one. But Titus 2, verses 4 through 8, that they admonish the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, homemakers, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be blasphemed. Likewise, and then it goes into men. There's a whole bunch of verses that speak on this. Genesis 2:18, you go right back to the beginning. And the Lord God said, "It is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him." And so on. There's you don't really need a whole bunch of these verses for me to make the point. The Bible believes in a traditional woman typically staying at home, and for the most part, and possibly completely staying at home. I mean, I can't really think of there's a very rare case of like a Deborah, prophet who led Israel, but that's a very rare case. For the most part, if they're a married woman, they need to be taking care of the children, taking care of the house. This isn't demeaning to them, and the feminist movement, unfortunately, has made it become demeaning. But yeah, women have kind of walked away from that role. Men have obviously walked away from a lot of roles, but women have walked away from this particular role, and we are now seeing the consequences of it. The nuclear family is very broken up. Okay, so that's one of the views. I guess a side note, Andrew Tate says these things, but he also is he's a very fornicating type of person. He goes out there and has sex with a lot of ladies, has a lot of children. So he preaches it, but he doesn't practice it, and that's important. And I think he'll even tell you he doesn't practice it. So he'll kind of go along and say, well, for the most part, this should be what people would follow, but I'm not going to particularly follow it myself. So yeah, there's that. But I think some of what he says is true. Of course, you're going to get these mainstream news outlets talking about, oh, he's comparing them to dogs. He's comparing them to all these different things. It's horrible. It's disgusting. He's a misogynist. He's a rapist. I don't believe that he is a rapist. Okay. Andrew Tate is a lot of things, but he does not appear to be a racist or a rapist or a racist for that point. Yes. As for those allegations, it's just very fishy. I mean, it is very fishy. Especially since this is someone who is pushing views, a lot of views, which the psyop, the mainstream, does not like, the Matrix, as he will call it. And so you just kind of wonder, okay, are they setting him up like they do seemingly so many other men? Yeah, food for thought, food for thought. What other things does Andrew Tate find? Well, okay, so here's one of the biggest things for me. Andrew Tate speaks on hard work and discipline. I love some of the quotes that he has about, motivation and how you won't be motivated. He says even, I think it's that he was motivated only 25% of the time that he was training. Take in mind this is a kickboxer training and becomes, world famous for it. And he's saying that he only was motivated 25% of the time. I can relate to this. I think we can all relate to this. We're motivated, a very little bit, just a small amount, and a lot of it just has to come down to discipline, and this just goes with so many things. I'm not always going to feel like doing something, but I need to do it a lot of times. I'm not always going to feel like keeping from, or not looking at a inappropriately dressed woman. I'm not going to feel like doing these things, but I know that they're right, and I should not be just doing what what feels good, because if I do what feels good, then if everybody did what felt good, we'd get nothing done. So I can respect his views, particularly on hard work and discipline, and that's true. He talks about masculinity, being at war, and I think this is true. Here we talk about the woman and her role being waged war on by the feminists, but masculinity is 10 times, you could make a case as 10 times is war waged. That's not the correct term, but people just continually are fighting against masculinity. Oh, you can you can be emotional all the time and vent everything out and just be soft and cry all the time. Listen, I'm not anti-crying. There are many, Jesus wept. I'm not anti-crying. If you think that being a man prevents you from crying, well, then you're wrong, okay? You're wrong. Especially if you're a Christian, and you hold to a Christian worldview, feel comfort in the fact that Jesus wept. But does that mean that you cry over every little thing? No, of course not. Giving up is another thing that, people say, oh, just give up, if you're sad, take medications. This is totally very modern, modern thought of like, yeah, if you feel bad, just take a med, just be lazy, only do what you need to, watch pornography, it's good for you. All these things. Masculinity is at war, for sure. We're told that asking a girl out, I'm being affected by this, and the world is being affected by this. I watched an interview of these ladies talking about, no guys ever ask us out, and they're these beautiful looking women, and it's like, wow, that's just amazing. But you kind of, as a man, you feel like, okay, well, I guess I can't ask girls out, and I shouldn't because it's wrong, I guess. And asking a girl for a number is wrong, and I'd be sinning if I did. And I might as well just kind of sit in the corner and not want any of this. It's very sad. Here's a quote from Andrew Tate. Avoid women who go to festivals. Festa hoes are tweeting me hate in between. Okay, I'm not going to read that. Okay, here's this quote. Avoid women who go to festivals. They're either on some loser's table who's feeding them cocaine, or in a crowd of sweaty peasants because they're a sweaty peasant. Endless Instagram stories screaming and having fun to prove to the world they're worthless. That's funny. I think part of the thing is people don't understand Andrew Tate's joking about a lot of stuff, but I also understand his humor because he is joking, but at the same time he's making a point, and that point is very understandable, and I think it's something we should take seriously. The point he's making is that a lot of these women, they get dressed up, they get giddied up in their outfits that are usually particularly inappropriate, showing just everything that they've got to everybody. They do all these drugs, and they try to have a fun time and party, and men do this too. He's not wrong. A lot of these type of women you want to stay away from. Same with a lot of these men. So, okay, you can go on both sides. People want to peg him as this misogynist, and he may play into that a little bit, partly because it gets a rise out of people. But it goes both ways, for sure. It's a problem, and I think that I was watching an interview by George Janko, and he was interviewing Andrew, and he brought up some good points, like the fact that Andrew will try to get a rise out of people sometimes, and it can be damaging to his, maybe at least to the perception of his character. Here's a quote from Andrew Tate. I think the most important thing anyone can do in their life is have children. When I speak to some of these feminists who are like, I don't want kids, I think you are the most miserable, stupid B-word in the world. Okay, well, I wouldn't call her B-word because it's not particularly kind. But other than that, I agree with what he says there. You are going to be miserable. You are going to be miserable. Listen, this is a whole nother topic. And in fact, I might post a video just right after this one talking about feminism. But you're going to be miserable, okay? Andrew Tate has a great point here. You're going to be miserable if you live your whole life being selfish and just dedicating your time to your career and your happiness and you. You're making yourself a god, okay? Versus having children, caring for those children, caring for your husband. Yep, it seems like a selfless act. Maybe that's not a terrible thing for you, okay? And there's a multitude of quotes and a multitude of points that he has made. Not every one of them I, of course, agree with, and many of them, I would say I'm half-half, I don't agree with what he thinks on Palestine. I do think that his Palestine view, taking almost a neutral, he doesn't take a neutral stance, but he does take a stance knowing that, both sides have a lot of wrong, and I for sure agree with that, as I think we should all agree that each side has a lot of problems. There's a lot of innocent people on each side as well. And so I don't just want to say, oh, this particular person is bad, or this particular person is bad. They do that, they divide and conquer. It's a very basic, fundamental rule of, taking over and conquering, is that you must divide that particular group so that they are far less powerful. A verse that goes along with what I'm saying here is a house divided against itself cannot stand. And that's just a basic concept that's not hard to understand by any means. But that's some other views. What would I take away from Andrew Tate, and what's the good and what's the bad? Particular bad, Andrew Tate is, he's a little harsh. He sometimes might say too much. He's very polygamous, has sex with a lot of people. He's ran porn sites, webcam sites. So I'm not saying that he's a particularly wonderful charactered person. But I don't think a lot of what people say about him is also true, you know. I think people call him a misogynist. I think people call him an idiot. People call him a conspiracy theorist. But a lot of what he says is actually very tempered, very true. And it's hated because the mainstream media hates him. And that's why you see so much hate against him. And people go, especially the sheeple, will go along with anything the media says. So if the media says Andrew Tate is an evil, wicked man, they're going to say, oh, okay, I guess he is. And that's just the truth. So listen to him at your own risk. Try to be discerning when you listen to him, but I definitely don't say don't listen to him. There's a lot of interesting points he makes, and he says it in a very bold way, and I think people like that, and I'm intrigued by him. I'm very intrigued by him, I must admit. I enjoy listening to a lot of his interviews. I don't take everything he says to heart, and I think we shouldn't take everything he says to heart, but I think there's things that he says that are true. Role model, I would not say he is, just because of some of his big, character flaws. I would say that he's not a role model. I would suggest to you, but I wouldn't suggest a lot of people to you. My role models are Jesus and the Christians that were in Jesus' time. Paul, apostles, the Old